Welcome to Beautiful Mess. My name is Isabel Pollen and I'm your host. And this podcast is here to explore the struggle of life, as well as the learnings from that struggle. I've spoken with a diverse range of voices from across the world, and I'm so excited to bring this next guest to you. Enjoy, and let's stay untangled together. So, ladies and gentlemen, listeners, I am very, very excited to have Bill Carmody here today, who a lot of my listeners actually will know who Bill is. He has had an incredibly eclectic and amazing career to date. And I'm going to hand over the baton as soon as I can to him to introduce himself and to tell us, please, Bill, where you are in the world and any piece of your story that you'd like to start with today, please.
Sure. Thank you, Isabel. Thanks for having me on your show. Yes, I'm Bill Carmody. I was the Chief Coaching Officer of Positive Intelligence for 6 years and actually helped deliver mental fitness to over 100,000 coaches in the world and have personally supported about 10,000 of those coaches through building their coaching businesses. And it's been just an absolute honor and privilege to help change the industry of coaching to become more accessible for more coaches and more sustainable for those coaches to be able to create a really good business around their coaching business.
And we've met through that program. So that's how we met. And I need at least 3 hours to start talking about positive intelligence and the impact it's had on my life. I discovered it thanks to Claudia Binder, who's another coach friend of mine who introduced me to the pod, went through the program, signed up to become a PQ coach as soon as I could. And I'll start by saying that fundamentally what's so exciting about it as work is that it is a lifelong practice.
Yes.
And the process of meeting people with this work, wherever they may be in their lives or coaching process or whatever it might be, it fits any context. And that's what was so exciting to me to discover. And so again, I'm going to do as little talking as possible in the short time that we have, Bill. And I'd love to ask you, could you tell us a little bit about how you arrived at that position with Positive Intelligence, your story before that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I built and exited 2 multi-million-dollar marketing agencies, Seismicom and TrayPoint, before joining Positive Intelligence. And it actually started because I was in gratitude. I wanted to thank Shirzad Chamine, who's the founder of Positive Intelligence, based on the fact that I had seen him in action the very first time with one of my businesses at Seismicom. And just the elegance of what he did as a coach was just so awe-inspiring for me that when I wound down the agency that is TrayPoint in 2017, I became a coach myself. And I really started to see the impact I was making on other people's lives. So I came to Shirzad to actually tell him like how much I appreciate the time that he has, shown me, like just all of the power that coaching can provide to other people. And as I'm sharing this with me, he asked me to rub my fingertips together with such fine attention to detail that I can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers, which is actually, for those of you who know, is a PQ rep. And I didn't know why I was doing it. And as I'm doing this thing, I'm like, what are we doing? Why am I doing this? And suddenly he just asked me, like, how do you feel right now? And I felt calmer. And it was so bizarre. It's like, what just happened? It was like this little voodoo magic trick that he was doing on me. What is this? And so he invited me to come in and participate in his program. And at the time, they were charging $995 or $1,000 for this program, and he gave it to me as a gift, and I really was appreciative of that. So I immediately started using it with my clients, and found that it worked just as well as it did on me with other clients that I was working with. And it was amazing. But I realized like I have all these great tools now that Shirzad had given me, and I wasn't able to compensate him for any of it. So I came back to him and I said, man, it's like Napster. I'm like taking all your content, using it for my clients. You need to build the Apple version of this so that I can pay you for this privilege. And he said, well, I totally appreciate what you're saying. I would love for you to come help me do this and build it with me. I said, no, 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 you don't understand. I have the perfect life right now. I have a coaching practice and a training practice. I've built exactly the business that I want. I take the summers off. I do everything that you would ever want to do. And I love my life. So, like, I totally appreciate your offer, but I'm good, you know? And he said, well, what is the purpose of your coaching practice? I said, well, I've seen how many coaches out there struggle in their coaching business, and I've been working with coaches on helping them to build and scale their coaching practices. And he says, that's great. Now, how many of those coaches do you think you'll be able to help by the time you're done? I said, I don't know, a couple hundred, probably 300, 400, something like that. He goes, that sounds about right. If you're doing that one-on-one or small groups, that sounds right. He goes, now, if you had my technology platform and you were able to do this, how many coaches would you be able to impact? And that was the moment when I was just like, oh, all of them. It was like this is such an amazing. So that realization got me to a shift, and that was the change when I decided that I would join him and put together this really beautiful coaching program that exists now as part of Positive Intelligence. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, because I've never heard that story before from you. We've only met in the incredible live sessions that you've run, that the team has run for us as coaches. And I say incredible, and I'm going to be specific about that language, because what I mean by that is that exactly what you've described, the elegance and the realness of this work, is something that is a double-edged joy, really, when you're experiencing it. And I think for our listeners, again, it would be so interesting to me as well to hear. You mentioned that you'd witnessed Shirzad, obviously, working his magic in your organization. And what was it about at that time, your observation of his work that was so special?
So I had a business partner at Seismicom that I was not getting along with. And the thing was, he was the majority shareholder, so he could make the final decisions. And I didn't like a lot of the decisions he was making. And so I fantasized about like the cheap cost it would be to assassinate him, right? Just to kill him, to murder this man. Now, I wouldn't ever really do this, but this was the fantasy. It was like I could just wipe him out, and then I could have this really amazing business I could do with all the rest of the employees, blah, 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 blah. But I share that with you transparently because that was the level of frustration and anger and resentment that I was holding against my business partner. And when my business partner suggested that he had a coach that could help us, he said this name Shirzad Chamine. I was like, you're going to bring someone from YPO, and of course they're your buddies. So they're going to take your side. They're going to tell you that I'm wrong, all that stuff. I'm not interested in any of that stuff. So I was already like jaded that this was not going to be a thing that would be helpful to me. And within one day, we spent a day offsite talking through the vision, the strategy, the planning, the challenges, all of those things. I went from wanting this person dead and out of my life to hugging him and genuinely, authentically saying thank you for all of the effort that put us into this position that we're in. It ultimately bought us about another 5 years of working together because I finally, for the first time, saw my business partner for who he was and not for who I wanted him or needed him to be. And I also saw the gap of what I could do differently to change our relationship and how I would actually be able to step into some of those gaps that I perceived as a growth edge for myself. And so for all those reasons, like I was just in awe of going from just an absolute feeling of animosity and hatred and just frustration, all that, to love and joy and support and appreciation and gratitude, like in one day, and I've been working with this guy for years. So it's like, okay, let's see that this is something powerful in this thing called coaching that I don't understand or appreciate. I need to take a deeper look at what this can be in the world.
Right. And I mean, again, I said I could spend 3 hours talking about this, so I don't want to go too far down here. But I do want to say that what you're describing there is what the positive intelligence language describes as being sabotaged, and the self-sabotage that happens, right? When our mind takes us places that sometimes we're not even aware. We just get into that pattern. And the opposite of that is the sage part of our brain, which we build through this practice. And I think what you've described as well is also needed in the world right now.
Yes.
The ability, and we're going to move into. I'd love to talk about your daughter as well, Bill, a little bit
Yeah.
here. But the polarization of whatever the context, people in general at this time, we are seeing it in front of our eyes every single day, and
Yes.
so. Finding a work and a practice that cuts through that and really enables us to stay accountable not only to ourselves but to those around us
Mhm.
is very, very powerful. So
Yes.
you speak as well around the world. You've
I do.
spoken to groups. I'd love to hear more about your speaking, please. Could you tell us about that?
So it's funny because I've been a public speaker since the early 90s, and so it's been quite a long time. But I'll tell you, the reason it started was there was just a gap that I decided to fill, which was in 1994. I built some of the very first commercial websites for AT&T, Mastercard, CBS, and Coors Brewing Company. And because I was one of the few people building commercial websites in the mid 90s, I was asked to talk about my experiences, and so I did. And what's really fascinating about the first keynote speech that I gave, I obsessed about the PowerPoint that I was going to have, all the slides, everything. And I walked up on stage and I have the clicker in my hand and I'm so pumped up. I'm ready to give my first real beautiful keynote speech to over 1,000 people in the audience. I go to hit the first, advanced slide and pop, the projector bulb blows. That's back when they had bulbs, so they just blew up. It just literally blew up, and there was no slides for that day. So
Wow.
suddenly I was like a panic. I was just like, but everything, all the content's there. And it's funny, I intrinsically knew to take a deep breath. I think, even though I didn't know about PQ reps or mental fitness training or anything else, I just like, okay. And I just took that nice deep breath.
Mhm.
And I looked at the audience and I apologized. I said, guys, I've spent probably a month preparing this beautiful presentation, which you're not going to see today. Anyone who wants to have this presentation, I will email it to you because it's so good. I love it. It's got lots of great content. But since we can't use slides, let's just have a conversation about what I was
Mhm.
going to talk to you about anyway. And like that, I became audience centered. And what I realized, that powerful lesson that day, was the best thing that could have happened is that projector blowing up. It gave me the opportunity to connect with my audience and be real. And
Mhm.
that took me on a trajectory of all kinds of global keynotes. I got to go to do a keynote right after Richard Branson in
Mhm.
Brazil. I had opportunities to do them in England and different parts of India. So I've had amazing opportunities, even TEDx talks, right? So I've done all of this stuff. But the
Right.
reason why is because thank God that projector blew up when it did, because I realized, the slides are not what people want. They want the connection. They want the storytelling. They want the realness that comes from an authentic public speaker who's not hiding behind their slides.
Yeah, and you're singing my language because I work in this arena every day and my background is acting. So, as a performer, as an actress, when you show up on stage, you have to be real. You have to
Yeah,
find a way to inhabit not only the story and the script and all of the things that you know are there technically, and the other actors and the tech and all of that. The most important thing is that connection with the audience. And if you don't
that's right.
have that, it doesn't matter how impressive your lines are. It doesn't matter who's on stage with you, frankly, if we don't believe what you're doing. In fact, um, excuse me, I like to share a story about an incredible acting coach who worked in New York. And she was phenomenal in so many ways. She was one of the first people to found the Actors Studio in New York. And she came to my drama school, which is the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London, when I was
Yeah.
19 years old when I went there, Bill. So I was the color of, I can't see anything green, but I was very green. And and she would have this incredible way of watching you rehearse a scene and then just say nothing for quite a while. And then she'd just say, I don't believe it. And that's
Oh,
it.
that's great. I love
And that
that. I love
that
that.
would be your feedback. That's it. She's not giving anything else. Just do it again because I don't believe what you're doing. It was
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
Isabel, one of the things that I share is the things that have helped me in my journey. One of them was the reframing. The biggest fear that people have is public speaking over death, right? So the old Seinfeld
Hmm.
joke was, if you go to a funeral, most people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy, right? And I love
Right.
that.
Yeah.
It's exactly
Yes.
good. I don't want to give a speech, right? But the thing that I realized was that my first speech coach that I hired shortly after that keynote that I was telling you about, he talked about reframing the energy that comes inside, because the difference between fear and excitement, bodily, like somatically, like in your body, you
Mhm.
can't tell the difference. What's the difference between a feeling of fear and feeling excitement, right? When I'm
Yeah.
excited, my heart raises, I feel the blood in my feel, like I might even perspire. Same thing as fear, right?
Hmm.
So the interesting thing was, he said, before you go on stage, just repeat, I'm excited, I'm excited, I'm excited. Just say it a couple of
Hmm.
times.
Hmm.
And suddenly you believe it, because you're like, okay, I'm excited to go talk to that audience. I'm not fearful. I'm
Hmm.
actually, this is such a privilege to be on this stage. And I'm going to take it very seriously, in the sense that I want to deliver value today. And so
Yes.
as I step into that opportunity, I'm holding it in the way in which it needs to be held, of thank you for this really beautiful gift of allowing me to speak to you today. I'm not going to squander this opportunity. I'm going to lean in. I'm going to be very real with you. I'm going to show you what I think would be really valuable for you.
Mm.
And I'll leave time to ask questions if there's things we want to talk about afterwards. And that, it just puts everybody at ease,
Right.
because all been in those theaters where you see a nervous speaker and you feel so bad for them, but you can't hear anything they're saying because you feel
Yeah.
so bad for them.
I know, and I talk about this a lot. The audience have a threat level as well, right? And our job as a speaker is to lower that threat level as soon as we
Totally.
can, because we are pack animals. And if
Yeah.
the person sitting next to me is feeling nervous about you, then I'm going to be feeling nervous too.
Yeah, you
Um,
look left, you look right. What's going on? Should we be okay? Are we okay? Are we okay right now? Yeah,
yeah.
love that.
So thank you very much for sharing that. And obviously, I'm going to drop all your information into this podcast and the show notes, so that people can go and have a good old look and see what you're up to.
Isabel,
Something
before you
very
move on,
yes,
just
go
on this topic specifically, one of the
please.
things that I did is I wrote a book that was never published, called Mic Drop. And the reason why I'm sharing that in this segment is because
Mm.
I took all of the content from that book and put it into my artificial intelligence agent, askbill.us. I share
Yes.
that because it does two things. It helps coaches build their coaching business, and it helps people become really powerful keynote speakers. And the thing
Mm.
is that if someone's listening right now and wants to say, well, how could I get up on a stage? Or how could I have the
Hmm.
courage to speak, which is really the thing that we all want to have?
Yeah.
Like, this is a great little tool that helps people work through the challenges, the fears, the uncertainties, the doubts, and help them really become a powerful keynote speaker. And I'm proud of that, because like, I can't coach all the people that I'd love to support. So it's a great way to be able to expand like the way that I want to help people in the world. And it's totally free. So I just wanted to make sure people knew about that.
Oh, honestly, that is just incredible and wonderful, and so many other things. And that's a whole nother conversation, really. I need to have you back. Um,
Absolutely.
but yes, it absolutely takes practice, and it takes the belief that we can do it with the help of those really micro skills. It doesn't just happen. Like anything, we need to practice it. And I can't wait to. I mean, I've discovered a little bit of our spill, but I haven't even touched the surface really in terms of what's available there. So thank you for that
My
reminder.
pleasure. Yeah.
And so moving toward now and
Yeah.
today, and then what's ahead for you, Bill?
Yeah.
There's a phenomenal thing happening, which you've organised with your daughter, and I'd love you to speak with us about that,
Yeah.
please.
So I talked to both of my kids early on about college and the value of college. And one of the things I specifically said was, I really believe that it would be nice to take a gap year to be able to increase your maturity level, so that you're a little bit more of a young adult before you really go into your heavy end studies, right? And so for my son Will, it was very clear he wanted to try on work. Because if you're going to do this for the rest of your life, better know what it is, so I know what skills I need to acquire. Awesome idea. Great. For my daughter Violet, I sat her down and I said, you can do anything but play video games all day. I don't mind if you play some video games, but that cannot be what you do for a full year. So what is it you want to do? And we talked about different options, and we talked about travel. I said a lot of people in Australia will do a walkabout, and they'll do a full year of travel, and it's beautiful and it's awesome and it sounds like a lot of fun. And she said, well, would you come with me? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. So we planned 3 years ago, we decided that her gap year would be us, the two of us, traveling the world. And so I've spent more or less that amount of time putting together this plan. It's been a long time coming. But we're
Wow.
going. 52 different countries. And we've mapped the entire journey on my website, billcarmody.com. So we
Hmm.
can show like, where are we going to be? When are we going to be there? And what are some of the things we're going to be doing and working on? And then we will document the entire journey. We'll have videos, we'll have blog posts, we'll have pictures, all that stuff will be on the website, because so many people are asking me the same question, like, how did you pull off doing a full year of travel? That's insane. And it is. And this is how we did it.
I think that's so incredible. And Beautiful Mess is the name of this conversation, or the heading of this conversation. What does that mean to you, Bill? Beautiful Mess.
Yeah. So it's this idea of the beauty that is in the chaos. So the
Mm.
idea for me specifically is, what is a beautiful mess is when I think about like not knowing all the things that will happen over this course of this year. There's gonna
Hmm.
and all of the things that will go wrong. I know it, right? What hotels will be canceled. People that I'm set up time to meet with will have other obligations. Hell, I talked about my grandparents are my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, Violet's grandparents, are 92 and 91. Either one of them could pass away during the time we're traveling, and I would have to
Right,
come back. So
right.
the thing beautiful about this is I can only do what I can do to plan out the trip to the best of my abilities, and then life happens. And
Hmm.
that beautiful mess is like all the things that then come up and show me like how life really is. Not how I want it to be, not my expectations, not all the other things that I've planned for, but what truly is. And can Violet love what is, regardless of
Mm.
what happens?
Yeah, I love that so much. And it reminds me of another acting coach that I'm a massive fan of, who also happens to be from New York,
Yeah.
called Uta Hagen, who said that the planning is in the preparation and the doing is in the letting go. And
Yeah.
it's that similar phrasing of thinking in terms of that, almost the tension between those two things is what makes it so unique, I think.
Yes. Yeah, so it's like we want to plan well in advance,
Mm.
but then execute loosely, right? So we want to plan tightly and execute loosely. So this idea of what are all the things we would like to try to accomplish, all things being equal, and if everything went according to plan, this is what we would love to do. But
Hmm.
the idea of letting go means not being attached to any of it, which means whatever shows up is what you're supposed to have done, right? So life is going to knock on your door and say, "Hey, come follow me over here." And whether
Right.
you're ready to or not, it's like this is what's being invited in. And so
Yes.
that's the beautiful to me, that's the beautiful mess. It's like, hey, there's a chaos, there's a beauty in just not knowing, no matter what I plan or how much I plan, not knowing how
Hmm.
it's really gonna go, and then being okay with it and just like
Yeah.
rolling. Yeah.
And I have a daughter. She's next door under strict instructions not to come in because she's almost 9 and we're on spring break.
Yeah.
And it's a precious age. Every age is a precious age. But I've been thinking in the context of this podcast today, Bill, and so grateful to you for showing up today, because our daughters and our children, our sons, any children in our lives, there's an acute awareness of what's to come at the moment. And I think in a way that's never really been present before. And so when I see her starting to ask questions, starting to explore the world in her way, what's so what's so beautiful to me about what you're creating with Violet is the space to go out into the world together. And the fact that she's asked you to go with her
Yeah.
is particularly beautiful, I think, because, you know, one might assume, just to sound very British for a couple of seconds, and our listeners might assume that if you were going together, the invite would have come from you, right?
Yeah.
But it absolutely came from her, and
Yes.
that's such it's such an emotionally intelligent thing to do, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm excited. It's one of those things where the other part of why we're doing this at this time is she's transgender, and
Hmm.
there's so much change happening in the United States. There's over 850 anti-transgender bills that are up for legislation across 49 out of 50 states. So it's like this is a really, really chaotic time. And part of that beautiful mess is being able to see like how that is outside the United States. Like, let's look at Dublin and seeing how progressive they are, and look at different countries and sort of where are they on the spectrum, because everyone's on the spectrum when it comes to this stuff. And so what's the awareness level? What's the acceptance level? Where's the belonging? Where does that exist? And we get to experience that together. I, as a father of a trans kid, and my daughter as a transgender child, being able to go out there and see the world as it is, not as it should
Hmm.
be, not as we want it to be, but exactly as it is, and being able to fall in love with the world as it is right now in this moment.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then I'm also thinking that when you come back, what an incredible, I mean, I can't really find the words to describe the compass she has now. And you have, excuse me,
Mhm.
although you've seen more of the world than she has, but she has such perspective when she gets back.
Totally. Well, and one of the most beautiful things is we are kicking off our entire journey in Dublin, Ireland at Google headquarters. And so
Hmm.
we're going to actually get to have an opportunity to speak live to the audience and any of the coaches from around the area that want to join us. It's totally free event at Google headquarters, which will be great. So I'll get to meet a lot of people in one-on-one, but more importantly, the coaches that have been watching and following my journey will have the opportunity to actually get to know my daughter, because she's going to be the one speaking right alongside of me. So this is the first time we're doing a joint keynote speech together, and it's her very first keynote speech. So I'm so excited that I get to be there for that really beautiful moment. And to your point, the beautiful mess that is,
Yeah.
however that will come out is going to be beautiful. Yeah.
Well,
So it's
no better place than Dublin. And what date is that? June,
July 4th.
July
July 4th.
4th.
Yeah, we
Okay, great.
start our travel on June 30th. So we'll have a couple of days, and we're going to Greystones, just south of Dublin, and then
I know
we'll
Greystones very well. Yeah, I know
yeah, it's a
Greystones.
beautiful spot.
It
Yeah.
is. And how appropriate July 4th. I mean, what a great date to kick off.
Exactly. There was no, there are no accidents. It's perfect.
And Violet, has she been asking Ask Bill a lot, or has she been tapping into the real Bill for the
Yeah. We've been doing these our own little podcast episodes on my website to be able to talk
yes.
about the readiness level. And so part of
Mhm.
what she's asking questions about, like, how is it going to be when I don't have my friends to tap into? What are going to be the biggest challenges? Well, how are we going to
Mhm.
deal with conflict? There's no question that the two of us are going to have disagreements about what to
Mhm.
do, where to be, all that kind of stuff. And how do we stay in constant communication? So what's beautiful is we're starting now to build out the plan, knowing full well that it's much better to have a plan in place for, when we're not heated and we're not in the middle or thick of it. But like, how do we want to argue and disagree and still be okay and not opt
Yeah.
out on each other? So that's
Somebody else, I love that. And it reminds me of somebody else. I'm a huge fan of Esther Perel's work and the relationship work that she does with people around that, almost writing out a manifesto of what's okay and what's not okay. And that will change, that will evolve, but absolutely having that almost not necessarily documented, but a place to go back to when you do arrive at those moments, which will inevitably happen.
That's right. We have something we call a covenant, which is essentially, it's not a law, it's not legal, right? But what it is it's an agreement of how we want to be together. And we're out of covenant, we can point back to that document to be able to say, look, this is where we want to improve, and here's an opportunity to learn. And so it's not a punitive document. It's not a like, you're bad or
Mm.
wrong or any of that kind of stuff. But instead,
Hmm.
it's more of how do we both wish to behave in this journey? And when either one of us is not behaving in that way, we've broken covenant, and it's an invitation to come back to have the kind of a relationship we want with each other and the kind of experience we want to have as we're traveling the world together.
You know what's playing in my head is as you're speaking, I'm thinking when Violet gets a partner, they're going to be like, "Oh, you learned all this with your dad. Whatever. Put the
Right.
covenant away," because
That's
the, the
right.
the the learning and the practice and the holding space, as I mentioned, that you're giving her as a parent is just incredible to have that as a template for how to build relationship. I mean,
Yes.
amazing, absolutely amazing. Um, so we have to finish. I really don't want to. I
Yeah.
could speak to you for hours. Um, so we're going to do a finisher, and it's literally anything that you want to offer. And I don't mean necessarily the most obvious version of offer, an offer that you want to give the world today that takes less than 10 seconds. And you can say, whenever you're ready, you can share that with us, please.
I would love to offer the world askbill.us as a technology platform that feels real, to ask any question and get any insight or support. If you liked what you've heard today, keep going.
That was probably bang on 10 seconds, Bill. you are a true pro.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And it's been beyond a pleasure to have you and speak in this way. We've never really spent this much time together, even though we've worked together for a few months now.
Yeah.
And as I said, I'll drop everything into the notes so that people know where to find you. Have an incredible time, and I will do my absolute utmost. I'm going to do the beautiful mess version of I'll Be There, which is that I have every intentions on a cellular level to be present in Dublin on July the 4th. And if life happens for whatever reason, then I won't be, but I will. That's what I'd love to do, is to witness that first moment, because what a trip. I mean, it's just going to be incredible.
Thank you, Isabel. I appreciate it. Again, thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being here. Please like and subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you at the next episode of A Beautiful Mess.